always laugh when I do sessions like this is I have so many slides, and it's not to overwhelm you, it's to keep you on track, because to be perfectly honest, if I didn't have the slides, we would be all over the place. We'll probably be all over the place anyway, let's be honest. But the whole idea of today, come on in. Nice to see you, ladies. Nice to see you. We will get stuck into it, just because I want to value the time. I know that you've got another session straight after this, so I do want to give you a few minutes there if you need to navigate where you're going, or grab a quick tea or coffee, you're able to do that. But the whole idea of this morning in this section is to really look at ideas for families to celebrate faith at home. I will come at it from a specific angle, and we will get to the practical steps, so please do go with me, because we'll go on a quick journey which hopefully will build upon what Lucy was saying on the whole idea of households, church and schools. So we will go on to that, but I always say, whether I do sessions online, whether I do it with to my mistake, I've actually said this right at the beginning when I'm talking in front of hundreds of people, where I've said, hey, if you've got a question, why not jump in thinking, oh, well, there's hundreds of people, they won't do that, but they do, so it's okay with a smaller group. So please, if you've got any questions or thoughts, I think Mike or Vic said it at the start, is the whole idea is that it's not just me doing this, that actually there's a wealth of wisdom in this room. So please, I will not be offended, far from the opposite. I love it when it gets into conversation mode. So please, I'm the kind of person who I just power through. I've got my notes, I know what I'm speaking, but equally, if there's a question or a thought, or you've got a story or experience to, I suppose, illustrate the point, please do jump in, and I am giving that permission right at the beginning, because you'll see in a minute, I just keep going. I can speak, so please do interrupt, please do jump in, and I'll endeavour at the end to give a little bit of space that either if you've got some questions, or if you're not in a rush to get off, please, I will sit around and you can chat through that. But we'll jump straight in. I always include a picture of myself and my family, just to, I suppose, just to remind you who we are, to be perfectly honest, because life gets busy, and life is certainly busy at the moment. I think one of the lies that during COVID and pandemic, I'm sure you don't want to hear those words, but I brought it up anyway. I remember through that, one of the lies that I started believing myself is, when things get back to normal, it will not be as busy as it was. I think it's busier personally, but that's my choice. Life is busy, but I'm so grateful for my family. We live in Newport, South Wales. Myself and my wife are part of senior church leadership. We are currently planting a church into the Welsh Valleys. So we are being released out of our church, and ourselves and the team are planting at the moment. But we are really sensing and believing for it to look a little bit different. Not different for the sake of difference, but the reality is where we're planting doesn't need another church. There are many churches, there are many church buildings, but God's really opening a door where we're actually meeting in a local rugby club. If you know the Welsh Valleys, rugby clubs are the heart of the community, and the guys who run the rugby club, they just open the doors to us. And they say, come in. So at the moment on a Friday evening, we're doing family things, we're eating together, we're exploring faith together, a little bit like messy church, but we've again chosen not to call it messy church, not because that's wrong, but they've already got perception of that in that valley. So we're just opening it up, eating together, and it's brilliant. And then on the Sunday, a couple of times a month, we are doing all-in services, again at the rugby club. And we're just really believing that God's going to open the door to do community provisions in that community, to do toddler groups. So that's kind of our journey. We have a little girl called Macy, who's 7.5. Sometimes I think she's 17, but she's 7.5. And then Hudson is 3.5. Hudson is in the middle of potty training, so I'm always thankful for the days I get to go away for a couple of days, because it feels like potty training's been going on a long while. So please pray for my wife, because she's got the patience and the same. That's a little bit about us. As well as our church work, I work for Care for the Family, and part of the work I do is all about working with churches, locally and nationally, helping them to rethink how we do family ministry. And again, I say rethink. Nothing we do is saying you're doing it wrong. It's actually listening and going, how do we best equip and support families? A big part of what family, we have so much resources out there. But I work on a specific project called the Kitchen Table Project, which is looking at how do we support and equip families within the church. Because I do believe in the whole idea of discipleship. And I believe in outreach, by the way. Outreach is so important. Keep doing that. But I do believe that nobody can reach the school mum on the schoolyard better than the school mum. No one can reach the 15-year-old school kid better than the 15-year-old school kid. So if we can actually equip and support the whole family, I do believe that we will see fruit. And that's not to say we don't do outreach, by the way. I believe in that. But this is one of the reasons why I believe in this. So I said we are going to get to the practical ideas and thoughts in a moment. But I just want to take us on a bit of a journey. Why I think the home is important. Because you might have come into this place. For some of us, we might be doing a lot of this already. I want to learn from you. And that's why I said, please do jump in. But equally, I want to just lay a quick foundation of why we think the family is an important place, and parents and carers are a great place to start when it comes to living faith. So through research, and Lucy will, I'm not sure she's doing another session, but she often uses a lot of the research that we put together about 6 or 7 years ago with Hope Together. And this research was looking at churches and families when it comes to faith. Again, what church looked like 7 years ago is a little bit different now. I think the pandemic made us think about how do we come alongside more families. But before that, we very much was used to doing kids provisions, youth provisions. And again, I love kids provisions. I love youth provisions. I was a youth worker for many years. But I want us also to think about how does the whole family come into this journey. So through the research, we found that the majority of people coming to faith do so before the age of 19. Again, if someone's over the age of 19, it doesn't mean they're a lost hope. Don't give up on them. I believe that God still wants to meet them where they're at. But the research also, if we dig a little bit deeper into the research, it also talks about the value of under 5s. And very much we know, like I said, I have an under 5 in our house. I realise that they're like sponges. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's not a good thing. Because they're learning everything, they're forming, it's formative years. So a lot of what we want to do is to equip churches and families to realise there are opportunities that represent themselves at home, even when they are maybe 2. And actually, how can we do that? That's why I believe in toddler groups. I believe toddler groups are more than just creating a warm space where people can come play. There's seeds sown, there's places to love and value families. And on that I suppose under 5's taking everything in. What's really funny at the moment, my little boy, he's just mirror modelling what I do and what I say. So at the moment he's calling everyone babe, which is very funny because I say, call my wife babe, but now he just calls everyone, which is lovely. But when he calls his nursery teacher, Mrs. Morgan babe, it's a little bit embarrassing when it's a bit loud as well. He opens the window as we're leaving, and he's like, bye Mrs. Morgan babe! So yeah, they take it all in. Through the research again, we found that just 50% of children growing up in Christian homes will continue to have faith as adults. When I look at that, I grew up in a Christian home, I grew up in a great youth group and a great church. And I look at those who I grew up with, I would say in my life it's far more than 50%. Again, I'm just taking a big picture view. I'm not here to debate about actually, they might not be living their life, but they still believe, I'm sure they do. But right now, many of the young people that I grew up with are not walking their life of faith. So they have families for themselves. So actually, they're not passing on faith to their kids. Because right now, they don't see the importance of it. Again, I don't mean that in a judgmental way, it's just a reality, and I'm sure many of us can see that. And I should have said right at the beginning, apologies, that even in a room like this one, there's maybe 15 of us here. We come from all different backgrounds, we come all from different lives, we work in different kinds of churches, we have different kind of families. Honestly, as I'm talking about passing on faith, right now you might know of people who are not living a life of faith, maybe your own children or grandchildren or friends' children. Look, so everything I'm saying today is not judgmental. I'm hoping to equip us. But actually, you'll see at the end, one of the most practical things we can do, ideas to celebrate faith at home, is actually to pray for families. So I encourage us, even if right now, maybe there's children or loved ones who aren't living their life of faith, But I believe that prayer still works, and that actually we can still pray for them. So, let me jump straight into some practical things. The way I kind of share it is not very structured. I just kind of like to throw out a whole bunch of ideas, and I'm sure maybe one or two of them will work for you, or will think that works for me. Others you'll be like, well, I don't know what you mentioned. But I pray that something I say today will encourage you, and will equip you, and will support you. So, 4 stages of faith. You may have heard this spoken about before. There's books written on it, there's podcasts spoken about it, and we will speak about it far better than I can in 2 minutes. But the reason why I include this in a session like this is because the reality is, in our churches, in our families, we're all at different stages. Life is a journey. And just because we're talking about children, as adults we're also on a journey. And I like this idea of stages of faith. I don't get ruled by it, it's a tool. But I think it's helpful to help frame our thoughts when we're talking about how do we equip families to celebrate faith at home. So the idea of it is experience faith, affiliative faith, searching faith, and owned faith. The first one is experience faith. Infants assume the faith of their caregivers as it is what they are first exposed to, their first invited exposure to Christianity. So it's the windows in. That is home, really. That is really seen at home, usually, before even in church. And yes, in church we will see other people responding in faith, but actually what they're experiencing is often at home. It's their first exposure to Christianity. Again, that happens probably when they're really, really young. And then the second one is affiliative faith. Children start copying what they see in those around them, and they will join in because everybody else is doing it. I think the best way to symbolise that is often in kids' clubs, children's ministry, Sunday school, toddler groups. That sometimes everyone's enjoying a game or doing crafts, so actually you do it because everyone else is doing it. And then the third one is searching faith. Children start asking questions, trying to understand the things that they already been taught, so they can decide whether they want to believe it for themselves. Again, we talked about the early years being formative years. So at this stage, again, it's not necessarily a cycle that we move from one stage. Sometimes it's like, we go back and forth a little bit. But the whole idea of searching faith is actually probably the phase that parents least like. Why? It's because it's the why phase. Why? The questions phase. My 3.5-year-old, he just likes to ask why for everything. But it's his phase. But the reason why I bring this up is to help support families to recognise that this is a stage of faith. So that parent who right now might be struggling because suddenly their 7-year-old is starting to question, why do we go to church? Or why do we believe this? Whereas for the 7 or 10 years before that, they just followed. Whereas now, it sometimes happens in a moment. And then parents or carers have a crisis. They go, oh my goodness, I'm a bad parent. My kid is running. Oh no, they're just asking a question. So how can we help churches, help families recognise that actually this is a vital stage of faith? But actually what we don't do is often give a safe space for those questions. I grew up in a house and I'm so thankful for my family. I'm so thankful for my parents. They did so much for me. But one of the things, and my mum would say this, one of the things they did is just brush everything under the carpet. And actually, if I asked questions, it'd be like, this is the answer. There was never that space that I found, even as I grew into teenage years, where I felt I could sit around a table and ask some of those tough questions. So actually, how do we, because as parents, we don't feel that. And we don't need to know all the answers either. We'll cover that in a moment. But searching faith. And then finally is this idea of own faith. This is when a child passes through the searching stage and gets to a place where they own their faith. I'm sure all of us in the work we do want to see children, young people and adults get to a place where actually they have a full revelation of their own faith. And we're all on a journey. That sometimes we think, oh man, I have questions. We all have questions. So how can we help families and in our ministries, in our Sunday schools or kids groups or whatever we do, understand that there'll be children at all different stages of this. It also helps parents and carers recognise the children at different stages. This little pie chart, like I say, I apologise for my wonky screen, but if oh there we go, that's right. If I just hold that for a moment, because that's a vital bit of my little pie chart. Let's swing around, there we go. So, I love this idea of pie chart. You know that says church, not perch. So, if it swings around, there we go. So, I love this little pie chart, and I love talking with parents and carers about this and churches. This little pie chart represents an average child's week, or average child's day, that pie chart is. And again, I know that not all children go to school or nursery and things like that. I know some children do after school clubs every single day. So don't quite kind of hold me to this. This is not a scientific thing. It's to illustrate to us a child's day. So we look at that little section. We look at the green section, sleeping. Most parents would prefer that section to be a lot bigger than it is. But it is what it is. It's quite a big proportion. And again, some parents will say, well, mine's only half that. I understand. I have a 3.5-year-old who's opposite to his big sister. And then we look at the purple section, which is school. We look at the yellow section, which is other activities. Then you look at that orange section with parents or carers or at home kind of thing. And then that little green section, which is church. Again, I'm not saying that there's no place for church. Church is really important. But as a church leader, how much time and effort do I put into that little green section? Rather than realising that little green section should set up for the rest of the week. That actually what am I doing as a children's worker or a youth worker? Set up quick families for the rest of the sections. And this is what we're talking about today, is how can we actually take a step back and look at the whole family and go, what we do is equip families for when they're at home, or when children are in school, or maybe when they're sleeping. So how can we look at that? And you see the text on the right, that parents, we believe, are the biggest influences on child's faith. And everything that I believe in is looking at how we join the dots between church and home. How do we equip families for that big orange section and the rest of life? So they say that the average child before the age of 10 spends 21,900 daytime hours in the home before the age of 10. I don't know why we don't just bring that up to 22,000 to be perfectly honest. You're not going to do the maths, are you? So if you look at that, it says it would take the church 421 years to spend the same amount of time with that child. Who works with children in their church here? Who's got children's work here? Majority, okay. Children's work is the most committed people I've ever met in my life. But I haven't met anyone who's committed to it for the next 421 years. Come on, what's going on? But we joke, but when I first saw that, it made me not think, oh, we need to get rid of children's work. It actually did the opposite. It made me think of what do we do with a child? How do we equip them for the rest of their life and for the whole family? And this is what we're talking about today. So a question for you to ponder on. Do the mums and dads, carers, grandparents, whoever you work with, in our congregations feel they have a role and an opportunity as the key influencer in their children's faith? And we'll cover it a little bit in a moment because that can feel like pressure. It's not supposed to feel like pressure, and we'll touch on that in a moment. And actually, what we're saying to parents is you're not in this alone, but actually we as the church want to support you in this. This is actually about the whole family, the whole church family will touch on that in a moment. So follow that. And this will lead us on to, because the reality is there are hurdles and challenges that we face. Just because I speak on this every single day of my life doesn't mean I hit the second part. Far from it. My wife has made me promise whenever I speak on this, I always tell at least one story which makes me look a little bit bad. So you'll hear that story in a moment, I'm sure. But hurdles that parents face. The first one is time. Let's be honest, life is busy. There's no such thing as the 9 to 5 anymore. There's different pressures on families, there's different work pressures, different financial pressures. So sometimes when we hear that phrase, parents, you want the influence on your child's faith, they go, how am I supposed to fit this in? I don't know about you, but this is not about adding more things to the to-do list. It's about recognising the everyday moments. I don't know if you've seen the average 8-year-old social calendar, but it puts mine to shame. They've literally got goodness knows what going on. School clubs, after school clubs, parties. I'm like, to my little girl, I'm like, make no more friends. No more friends. She's like, Dad, we're supposed to be friendly. I'm like, you can be friendly without being invited to parties. No more parties. I'm joking. But we talk about life. It is busy. So we're not talking about actually adding more things. It's also not about adding more church calendar events either. It's about recognising the everyday moments. Second one is confidence. We don't know where to start. That actually as parents and carers again, it's tough. Sometimes we feel like we're not good enough. And we'll touch on that in inadequacy. But we actually don't know where to start sometimes. We feel a little bit overwhelmed. And then with parents you work with who hasn't grown up in church, and they might be engaged in the toddler group, well, there's still an opportunity to equip them. But it's actually not about overwhelming them, it's actually helping them realise it's not about being perfect or knowing everything. It's sometimes just making the most of the everyday moments. I realised this at the start of the pandemic. My little girl was only 4, so I think she was in reception, if I remember rightly. They're all blurring together right now. Yes, she was in Mrs. Furtick's class in reception. She was 4. I need to stress that because you'll realise why. So the homeschooling was for a 4-year-old. It wasn't a 4-year-old doing GCSEs. It was a 4-year-old who was learning phonetics, was learning shapes, learning all these kind of things. My wife was still working, I got made furlough, so I was the designated teacher in our house. That was soon a big mistake. So we had a 9-month-old, so we were kind of like trying to keep it entertained, but trying to do our best to do homeschooling. Mrs. Furtick was sending work home every single day. 4-year-old. I was overwhelmed. I felt like, oh my goodness, where is this happening? So for the first week of homeschooling, I'll be honest, I didn't do very much. I was like, basically school's out. Because I'm like, you're going back to school next week. Still back to normal. Then after the second week, I was like, oh no, you're not going back yet, are you? So I thought, I better give this a go. I failed. I honestly did not know where to start. I had no confidence. I actually was like, oh my goodness. And then I had the dreaded email from the teacher wanting to catch up. Mrs. Furtick just sent it to me, the parent. I thought I'm the only one being chosen. She's realised that homeschooling's not going well. I'm failing my little girl. She's going to be a failure in life. I've wrecked her whole life, and it's all because of me. And she sent this email, and my wife's laughing. She's like, I said, oh, you speak to her. She's like, no, you're the teacher. You speak to her. And I'm like, okay. So we're having this little bicker, and then Mrs. Furtick arranged a phone call. Speak to her on the phone. First 10 seconds, I realised she's talking to everyone, so I thought, okay, I'm not in trouble. I had all these bad memories at school. You're probably learning a bit about me, aren't you? And so I had all this, and then Mrs. Furtick sent this question, saying, how's homeschooling going? I thought, oh no, I have 2 choices. She knows I'm a Christian, she knows I'm a church leader, so I better not lie. So I was like, so I kind of said, oh, it's going okay. Like, it's a bit hard with a 9-month-old in the house and with everything. I said, okay. And I said, oh, to be honest, I'm not doing much. I really don't know where to start. She said, it's okay. She said, Mom, what are you doing? With Mason during the day, and again, I thought she'd try to trick me up here. And I said, well, for our 1 walk a day, because again, remember those times we were allowed to go out of the house once a day. I was like, for our 1 walk a day, I'm actually trying to teach her to learn to ride a bike. And Mrs. Furtick said, Dad, if the only thing Mason learns in homeschooling is spending time with you and learning to ride a bike, you've done a great job. And she was like, and I don't know if she thought that homeschooling was going to go on as long as it did, but she said those words, Dad, you're doing a great job. I needed to hear that in that moment, because I felt like I was doing a rubbish job. I felt like I was going to fail my children. But her just saying, Dad, what are you doing? You're doing good. So I really believe that actually I've made all that story probably a bit too long, but to help us realise that we have an opportunity to come alongside parents and families and go, you're doing a great job. Because I can guarantee you that parents you work with don't think they're doing a good job at it. Not just on faith, but in general. Because, I don't know why, we feel guilty. We compare ourselves to others. So how can we come alongside families and actually go, it's not about having this perfect children's curriculum at home. It's not about recreating children's ministry. It's actually about making the most of that everyday moment. Inadequacy, we don't feel good enough. Again, it's not being perfect, it's not being experts. Often, they will see you as the church and us as the church as experts in being perfect. We need to help them realise we're not that perfect. We actually need to help them realise, yes, we know what we're doing, and we trust our children with it, but actually it's not about recreating what we do. It's about making the most of everyday moments. We will skip through those slides and get to this bit. And that everyday moments leads us to this Deuteronomy 6 scripture. You may have heard this scripture talked about in the past. And it says, fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds. Tie them as symbols on your hands and write them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. If you've got a moment, you can go on our website at Kitchen Table Project, and we've got small group discussions and sermon ideas. We've got literally 2 hours of teaching. Don't worry, I'm not going to do 2 hours tonight. But we have a lot of teaching on this, just this verse, because this is really helpful to help families recognise. So if you've got some time, why not check that out? But why I love this scripture is Moses is actually not saying to the people, get the children to be experts in the tribe. They're not saying, bring everyone to my feet and I'll teach them. He's actually saying, everyone. He's talking to everyone. Everyone has a part to play in this, whether you feel good enough or not good enough. Teach them to your children. And again, when I say this, not make them a few rows and then teach them. It's actually talking to them whilst you walk down the road. It's talking to them when you get out of bed, talking to them when you wake up. What is that saying to us? It's the everyday moments. So how can we help families recognise that God is big enough and wants to be involved in every part of our day? That actually, some of the best times I have with my family is not on the way home from church when I've just preached or when they've been in Sunday school. And you talk to the 7-year-old and say, what did we talk about today? She's like, I don't know. And you're like, okay. One of the best moments of the conversations we have is actually watching happening. Why? Because Mason turns to me and goes, that has not been very kind to George, has she? And I'm like, oh yeah, let's talk about kindness. So it's about making the most of the everyday moments. And we talk about this, if you do more on the website, at bookends, is to start at the beginning and start at the end of the day. So the best conversation I have with my children is driving to school, is playing at the park. And again, when I say conversations, they don't look like complicated conversations. They look like little simple conversations as we know. But you might be like, well, that's simple, but do the families recognise that? That actually, the best conversations are sometimes when we play together. So how can we help families recognise the importance of the everyday moments? We encourage families to rewrite this scripture for themselves. We've written it for the Hillier household and we've put it on our fridge. And it looks messy. When I write this, when I talk about what does faith in our home look like, it looks messy. It often doesn't look like the perfect Instagrammable moment. As I joke that the project is called the Kitchen Table Project. But trying to get my 3.5-year-old to sit around the kitchen table, unless there's chocolate involved or Play-Doh, he's not interested. But actually, when we're playing together, I noticed the other day, and again, I was just so encouraged because this is not his normal way of acting. He was playing at the park last week and he fell over and hurt himself. And then he walked away and he went on to play. And I just thought, man, I was talking to himself. And he's holding his hand and he just goes, Jesus, my hand hurts. Amen. And I was like, oh my goodness, he's actually, like, that's the first time I've ever heard him like see thing. And again, I'm not saying this to be perfect, because usually his conversations with God or me is usually calling me a hoo-hoo head. Because that's the kind of level we're at. But it's helping us recognise the everyday moments. Okay, some practical things that we can help more practical. Recognising this idea that is parents ministry. We have ministries in our churches for everything. And I'm not saying that we have to have a parents ministry, but just that idea, do we recognise support and equipment in parents is really important? Because it helps in value. For me, I love what I get to do in my life. Like, I love that we are planning a church. I love that we're part of a healthy church. I love my job at Care for the Family where I get to travel and talk to people. But I also have to realise that home is part of what I do. That I can travel around talking about this stuff, but if I'm not putting it into practice at home, it means nothing. But I also need to actually say no to some stuff, because life's busy. So I've started saying no to more things in church. I actually can't get to that, because I need to spend time with my family. And we need to give families that space. We need to remove the sense of an expert culture. Again, I love that you're experts in arts and craft. But arts and craft does not work in my house. Because arts and craft, I'm not an arts and craft person. But my kids love it. So I need to actually remove the pressure off me and go, it doesn't have to turn into this massive Picasso art piece. But actually my little jumbled up milk cart and Jesus is actually a good thing to do together. So it's removing that expert culture. Next one, the spell and the guilt. Rob Parsons, who started Care for the Family, often talks about that as parents, we actually are born with guilt. That actually parents, we just go straight to guilt. We're good at feeling guilty. We look at the media, we look at the other families and we go, oh my goodness, I'm not feeding my kids healthy enough, I'm not doing enough exercise, I'm not doing all this. And I'm not saying those things are wrong, by the way. But we feel guilty, even though we're probably doing a good job. So I think part of our role is actually helping, especially on this, helping families recognise they're probably doing some stuff, but they don't always see it as valuable because it's maybe not a big moment. So the standard comparison. Help parents to take the lead. So basically what I mean by that is giving the parents confidence that actually what they do at home may not look like what we do in church, but it still has value. Helping them that playing is really important. Building stuff together, cooking together, all these things are moments and opportunities to talk about the things of God. Encourage parents to see the simple things they can do in everyday life. Walking to the park, and we've got some great resources on the Kitchen Table Project which helps with this. We've got something called Scrumptious Feasts, which are basically table mats. They're all free. You can order 100 and we will not charge you. How amazing is that?
We use these here. We use one of our...
Amazing.
Anyway, it was great.
Brilliant. The whole point of them is just to help do normal things. What's more normal than eating together? Especially for me, eating together is my normal. So, and we have scavenger hunts online that you can download and they go through a structure. And they're all free. And it's all about actually getting the whole family together. And when I talk about family, I honestly mean from the youngest to the oldest in our churches. And we'll talk about intergenerational very quickly in a moment. And then start conversations between parents. We touched on the stages of faith. So often we think we're the only ones going through what we're going through. And it's only when you sit down or hear something from someone you realise, oh, you also struggle with that. Or your 8-year-old, suddenly I think my 10-year-old is rebelling, but actually it's just normal. And actually, it helps to have those conversations. And as churches, we're great at putting on programmes and events. I love programmes and events, especially in England. But do we factor in opportunities just to do life together? Just to have conversations? I was so blessed. We've got a few people in our church who either never had children or got grandkids now, or they basically haven't got young kids in the house. And they all rallied together. And they were like, we're going to put on something at the church to look after all the kids. And you parents order in a curry, no programme, no one's going to preach, we're not going to do any of this, but just talk. And we're like, oh, thank you. Because normally, my babysitting allowance is normally taken up for church events, or me being away. But suddenly there was just no agenda. We just had a curry together, we encouraged one another. We actually ended up praying with each other, because some of you realised, oh man, we need a bit of help here. So, how can we help facilitate some of those moments? And I remember a mate of mine saying, saying to me, oh, do you know that so-and-so's going through like a really hard time at the moment? I said, oh, no. I only went out for a coffee with him recently. He didn't mention. And he was like, well, what did you talk about? I said, oh, I talked about football, I talked about this, just normal things. He's like, okay. And then what was interesting, when I watched the football 2 weeks later, and we're literally sitting next to each other, during the football, I didn't choose a very good time because I'm into football. He opens up and talks about everything. And I was like, after I said to him, oh, thanks, Shane. I said, why didn't you say that to me the other week when we went out for a coffee? He said, sitting opposite's really awkward, isn't it? I'm like, yeah. He said, back at the football, we were just sitting next to each other. And we were not having this moment because we were watching the football. He said, that's my moment. And I just really helped me to go, do you know what, sometimes we just need to give parents that space to have those conversations, not forced, not to go suddenly have to have a deeper meaningful. Sometimes it's the least convenient moments where after church my kids are running around like loonies and suddenly someone wants to talk to me. I have an opportunity to encourage. Again, I still need to have my shoulder. To start conversations between parents. Okay, we're going to move on very quickly because I do want to honour what I said at the beginning. What builds faith? And these are 5 really practical things that can help families, but also help us as churches on this journey of equipping families. The first one, and if you come see our table, we've got a little post-it which illustrates these. So again, I have one of these up on my fridge. It just reminds me of the easy things. I love easy wins in my life. And actually, how do we help parents and families recognise some really easy things that we can bring to build foundations in our houses? The first one is prayer. I said right at the beginning that we can be praying even for children who are not young children. They can be 30, 40. I'm a 37-year-old, but I still need people praying for me. So how do we help pray? And this idea of prayer, and again, I'm not adding a to-do list to your already busy lives, but do we ever take a moment? I'm sure in our children's groups we'll probably pray and different things like that. But have you ever asked the parents you work with, is there anything I can pray for? Maybe that's a WhatsApp message. Maybe that's as they're picking up their kid and you just say to them. And then this is what I do. I always make them know, and people laugh at me. I can't remember anything. So if you look at my diary or my reminders, it's the most random thing. From taking chicken out of the fridge to text John to see how the job interview went. That's how random like, my reminders are. But what I often say is, like, make a note then. And then maybe next week when you see them, just go, oh, how was that meeting that you asked me to pray for? Or how did that job interview go? And it just helps place value on the whole family. But prayer, when was the last time that we prayed for our families? When was the last time that, again, I'm not trying to add more things to do, but all these things place value on the parents when actually they go, oh, your child said this today. Right, how's this? Your child said that their nan is well. Right, is that your mum or is that your wife's mum? It places value. They're not big things either. So prayer is really important. And prayer really is. I love this quote from Mother Teresa. She said, let us love one another as God loves each one of us. And where does this love begin? In our own home. How does it begin? By praying together. Again, prayer doesn't always look like this perfect moment where we're all holding hands around the kitchen table and praying. It doesn't. Sometimes the prayers in my house get messy. Sometimes it looks like putting your hands in the middle, and then at the end going in there. So prayer can be as long or as short as we want it, can't it? It's all about talking. It's all about communication. So how can we help families recognise who is that man? Who is that going to be natural things? Hope. What builds faith? How do we help families recognise the importance of hope? A warm, affirming family where children feel safe, loved and accepted gives a secure foundation for their faith to grow. Not a perfect home. All of our homes look different. All of the families we work with look different. So it's helping families recognise it's not about being perfect, but it's about actually making the most of the opportunities that exist at home. I travel a fair bit. Usually I drive, but unfortunately I had quite a bad health scare in October last year. And out of nowhere, our lives got turned upside down, and I'm now under a heart surgeon and all that. And honestly, we were on holiday and it turned our world upside down. But usually I'm used to driving, but I'm not allowed to drive at the moment, which is so frustrating. But hey, I need to have respect, it's not the end of the world. But usually, I travel a lot and I'd be driving around the country. And my wife helped me know this, maybe not in such a loving way, I think she showed me one. Because I'd be away for a few days, and I would probably have just driven 4 hours to get home. And I'm so excited to get home. But I'm also realising that I've just been away for a couple of days, and in that 4 hours I probably had a few missed phone calls, had a few emails. And I would come into the house, and I would just go straight, open up my phone or open up my computer, check that or deal with whatever. And again, I'm not wrong with things. But I was caught up with everything that I've just been involved in, or my head's full. And my kids just want to play with me. My wife wants to download what's happened on the last few days. But I'd be so caught up in everything that's happened that for the first 10 minutes being home, I would just be caught up with myself. That's not wrong either, because life hits us all. So my wife just made a suggestion. I don't know if it was a suggestion. And she told me, you do this from now on. She said, when do you get home? We live on a house in Spain. Why don't you just park up around the corner before you get home? Get your phone, maybe check an email or do a phone call, or even just sit there for 10 minutes and watch something, because actually your head's full and you just want to download. And then when you get home, it's different. And I was like, oh, that's a good bit of advice, I'm going to listen to that. But it's a game changer, because suddenly when I'm home, I'm present. Again, things come up, a phone call comes in, an email. So I'm not saying don't do work at home, do you know what I mean? But for me, it certainly helps, because my kids haven't seen me for a couple of days. They just want to play together. So big challenge for me, when I'm at home, am I present or am I just there? So how can we help families recognise there's opportunities that exist at home that exist nowhere else? And it looks different. My 7.5-year-old isn't really too into just listening to a Bible story or any story. She wants to act it all out. She's immersive. So how can we help families recognise that there's not a one-size-fits-all approach? Do you know the story my little girl loves most is the walking on the water? Not because of the powerful truths of stepping out in faith or trusting God. She loves that story because it gets me into trouble with her mum. Why? Because she acts it out at bath time. And my 7-year-old can't walk on water. And she makes everything messy. The bubbles go everywhere, the water goes everywhere, the bath toys go everywhere. But I haven't met a 7-year-old, I haven't met an adult who knows that story better than her. But it gets me into trouble with my wife every time. Lois comes up the stairs, she goes, you're acting out that story again, aren't you? That's at home. It's making the most of those opportunities that exist at home. Loving, laughing, having fun. Those are things that we can do at home. It's not all fun either. There's challenges, and we'll touch on that very quickly in a moment. Belonging. Involving children at church and building relationships with others helps children feel like they belong to God's family. Do the children in your church realise that it's their church, or do they think it's just mum's or granddad's church? Because the way they perceive church, especially at a young age, is often the way they perceive God. So if they don't feel like they belong in church, they'll actually question if they belong to God. So how can we help create those spaces that children feel like they belong, that families feel like they belong? Again, I know we have to do separate things, but also how do we help do things together? And that's where intergenerational comes in. I cannot do what I do without the older people in our congregation who love our kids, who has patience with me, who actually comes alongside me and goes, "Gav, you're doing a good job," even when I don't feel like I'm doing it. How do we help encourage that beautiful picture that is church? A psalm, one generation will tell you the words. We're all in this together. This belonging, my little girl was writing her birthday list a couple of years ago, and while I was writing it, she was telling me all the people she wanted to invite to her party. And basically they were all like 5 and 6-year-old kids from school, from church. And then she said, "Dad, write this one in big." So I knew that this was not going to be a 6-year-old girl. And she said, "Phil." And let me tell you who Phil is. Phil is now married. At that point he was our youth worker at church, one of my best mates. Phil's from Ireland. He's probably mid to late 20s. And she wanted him at her party. Do you know why she wanted Phil at her party? Phil will always talk to her in church on Sunday, even when everyone else wants it, all the young people want it. Phil picks her up from school sometimes. Phil takes her out for milkshakes. Phil gets me into trouble. Phil teaches her things that sometimes I don't want her to know right now. But in her mind, Phil's part of the family. I didn't even make the invite list. So I had a great idea. I said, Phil, you take the 6-year-old kids to McDonald's, and me and Lewis will go over to the harvester over the road. He did not like that idea, so I questioned his commitment to our family. But the reason why I say that is, isn't that what family is? That actually children, that actually we learn from different people. Say straight up to you, do you know what I mean? Like, let's be wise with it as well. Not every kind of person is involved in our life. But actually, there's going to be things that my children learn that they don't learn off me. But actually, who have I invited into our family to journey those things together, to do life together? How do we do that in church? And especially true with young people. Young people often as the church, people focus on, we need to make it the best building, we need to make sure we've got the best Xbox, the best events, the best residential. Sometimes the young people are like, well, that's great, but I just want to know that you love me. I just want to eat a burger with you. So how can we create those places that we belong? We are bringing this into closure, please know. Be real. It's not about expertise. Parents don't need to be perfect. Rory touched on that. But living out of faith in a genuine way inspires children to want this for themselves. It's all about being real. How do we help families? And again, how do we model it in the church? It's not about having it all together. I don't know about you, but God doesn't always answer my prayers like I think He should do. How do we help children recognise that? Again, age appropriate. I hate this one, by the way, being real. Because I much prefer pretend that everything's okay. Because that's what I grew up with, to be perfectly honest. I could be standing up here right now, and I literally could be in the most excruciating pain you would ever do. Because I think we've been conditioned to smile and wave. And sometimes we think that's the same in church. Just because we're part of the church doesn't always mean that we're real with each other. I remember this 4 years ago now, which is crazy. Time goes so quick, doesn't it? My wife's parents, they led a really large Assemblies of God church in East London. And we live in Newport, South Wales. And on the Sunday, we found out, so my little girl was 4 at the time, we found out that we were actually having a second child, which is my birthday. We were so excited to tell the family, and we were actually going on a holiday with my wife's family in October. So we were like, you know what, let's just wait until then. Let's just tell them, because her dad especially will lose it, because he was an incredible man. And so we were like, okay, we won't tell. So we told a couple of friends. That was the Sunday. Then the Monday, we're talking to my mother and father-in-law on the phone. And they'd just been into London, it was their day off, they'd just been in for dinner. So he was happy because he just needed to stay here. We had just picked up my wife from the train station, and my little girl would call Grandad or friend. She couldn't say Grandad. So she said, my friend, my friend. So we just had this conversation, normal life. My wife would always FaceTime my parents. We'd drive over, went to bed that night, and about 10:30 at night, and my phone rings, and it was my sister-in-law. And at that time, I think we'd been married 8 years, and I don't think my sister-in-law ever rang me. So I was like, this is weird. So I looked at my wife and I said, it's for you. And then, because I was like, why would she be ringing me? So my wife was like, oh no, Hannah wants to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. I said, hey guys, you need to get down to London now, down to hospital. That's just in the hospital. I was like, what do you mean? Like, we literally just walked in, like 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. She's like, just get down to London. So we'll get stood up somehow in life. And we live in Newport, London's there. Our little girl's sleeping, all these things go through our head. Do we take our little girl with us? Do we leave her at home? Obviously, get someone to look after her. I'm not that crazy, I won't leave her alone. So we decided, I rang on my couple who lead our church, and I said, I don't know what to do. And they said, hey, just go. Get someone to look after her. So my mum came over, looked after me, and got on the road. I don't know if you know the M4 from South Wales to London. It's just a stretch of road. At night time, it's brilliant because you can just drive. And it's pouring it down with rain. And it's about midnight, it's just normal. We don't really know what we're going to be perfectly honest. We just go to the hospital. So it was kind of normal. We had a bit of music goes, Gaz, can you pull over? And I'm like, okay. Again, my wife had no clue. Said, Dad has an idea. Literally, our world's turned upside down. Switched on lights. The scariest moment of my life, because my wife opened the door on the hard shoulder of the M4, pitched up, pouring down the rain, and she just ran on the hard shoulder. Because her lights were turned upside down. Threw herself on the floor, upset, got back in the car, managed to get down to London and like, well. But the reason I tell you this story is because, and this is why I'm passionate about this stuff, because our 4-year-old, everyone's telling us, oh, she got out. She doesn't really know what's going on. They know so much more than we think they do, by the way. And I remember the week before the celebration, and again, it's real. I'm trying to be there for my wife, still dealing with all my own stuff, to be perfectly honest, like questions and all this kind of thing. And I'm trying to comfort my wife, and we're at home, and I remember it so vividly. She's just crying on my shoulder, and I'm trying to support her. I'm doing a very good job. And my little girl's upstairs, and she comes running downstairs. And I thought, I have two choices right now. I can close the door and let her go play in the playroom. She doesn't need to see me in that for a second, because that's not good for her. Then I thought, I know what I'll do. Leave my wife in the living room. I'll pull myself together and be like, come on, Macy, let's go play Barbies. Because I'm really good at that. Just leave my wife there crying like this. Again, she doesn't need to see this. Before I knew it, my little girl came running in. She came running and jumped on top of us. And she pulled us in and she did this. She said, Jesus, my friend not here no more. I'm really sad. Help my mummy, amen. And then we're running off to the play. The reason why I tell you that story is not to make me look like a good dad. Because I'll tell you one last story in a minute where you'll realise that. I tell you that story, it's my prayer is when my little girl turns 15 and is worried about her GCSE results, she realises that she can cry out to God. When she's 25 and maybe trying to deal with career pressures or relationship issues or whatever good comes away, she realises that God hears her prayer. When she's 30 and maybe has her own kids of her own, and she realises children are not as easy as she thinks they are, she realises she's not on her own. But she needs to see it modelled somewhere, and she needs to learn it somewhere. And I think home is a great place for that. Obviously, age appropriate. But we often think we need to shelter our kids and give beautiful things. But they need to realise that all our prayers don't always get answered like we think we should. We didn't even get a chance to pray for our Father. But yet I believe that He does hear our prayers. But how do we help our kids and our parents recognise that sometimes it's in those moments our children learn so much, not just in the beautiful moments. And I remember that in the celebration, we had to set up this massive circus over this field inside there, which we couldn't fit everyone in church. And we're in this massive tent, and we're sat still on the front row, and my little girl's on the left, and she's looking to the right, and my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and my wife are singing the song as well as this. I just couldn't square it up. I'm like, it's not well. I have a question, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. But yet, what my little girl song, even through all the tears, so I'm saying, God, I still believe. I still trust you. And that's why I believe that actually how we model. And there's times where actually we don't get it right as well. But how do we make the most of those moments? Because I love that line there that says, the slides of oneness for themselves. I believe that we couldn't have gone through that season. And I'm sure many of you have gone through it. It's not even just a moment. It's our life now. It's our life. But I don't think we would have got through what we got through without our faith. So my prayer is that I know my little girl, my little boys can encounter the challenges on their lives. I want them to know that God is with them. And finally, you release them. Be intentional. This is a really important thing that we can help families recognize. Finding simple ways to involve God naturally in everyday life encourages children to know and love Him. It's not about this big complicated program, it's about making the most of the everyday moments. And the good news is, our children watch everything. So how can we help families recognize it? It's not even often what we say, it's how we live life. I remember my little girl just loves going to weekly shop with me over Aldi's. We go out and go shopping. And there used to be this homeless guy who used to hang around inside Aldi's. And like many of you, would walk in and would go, hey, can I buy you anything? And I would always say, hey, do you want anything? Didn't think nothing of it, just normal. Usually he would say no. We'll get on with the shop. I know mentioned it, shouts at this guy outside and goes, "Hey mate, do you want any food?" The problem was, he was just waiting for his wife to get home from work. So we then had to have a conversation. Not everyone who hangs around shops needs our money. But the reason why I say that is, it's as simple as that sometimes. It's making the most that we have a choice. We always have a choice over what we do with our time. Sometimes that's for someone else. Sometimes I can't do everything that I want to do. But how do we help families recognise the little moments? The slowing down. When the kid says, "I don't want to go to school today because I'm scared," there's an opportunity to pray together. When actually there's an opportunity because there's a charity box at the front of the night and your little kid wants to put money in there and we get to talk about kindness. These are all moments that it takes us to be intentional. And what's really funny, I'll say this because I'm in England, so I can say this. I'm Welsh, my wife's English. And it works the other way as well. They model the things you don't want them to model as well. Come on, children. You should choose what's right or wrong. But what was really funny is we're watching the rugby, I love rugby. And we're at home, and I watched the Wales-England game last year. And in my humble opinion, the referee was not making very good decisions. Because they were benefiting England and not Wales. So I got a little bit frustrated. My little girl was with me. About 10 minutes later, my wife comes in with some food for us. It had to be that moment, didn't it? Because as she walked in, my little girl jumped off the sofa, got her shoe, and threw it at the TV, and started shouting at the England players. And I'm like, "Wife, look, you need to discipline your child." Problem is, my wife didn't look at her. She just looked at me. Said, "What's going on here?" I said, "Yeah, I know exactly." She said, "Dad, what are you doing?" She just copied exactly what I said. So I say that just about a bit of fun to be like, do you know what? Sometimes we have to be real. Like, do you know what? Life is tough. There's sometimes where actually I don't do what I should. But actually, our children seeing us apologise is actually really important. So me then saying sorry to the England players on TV, which my wife made me do, was a humbling experience. But we laugh. But how can we help families recognise that actually sometimes about simple things, about being intentional? And then I'll leave you with this quote from John Wesley. He said, I'm sure many of us have heard of John Wesley, "I learned more about Christianity from my mother than all the theologians in England. My hope for Hudson and Macy is that when they see me and my wife goes, we're not perfect, but they look at us and go, I've learned some stuff that I want for myself." And I think that's where we are positioned as the church. I know we've gone on a massive journey today on so much, and maybe it hasn't even been what we thought it was going to be. But I hope that there's some ideas in there that we can start working with families and parents and build faith up, celebrate together at home. And how we as the church are positioned. And like I said, I can talk on this stuff for hours. We've got loads of great resources, check them out. But the last thing I'll say is that as we know, life is tough, it's full of ups and downs. But how can we as the church, how can we as individuals come alongside families and do life together, to encourage, to actually go, hey, do you know what? There are little things we can do at home. How can we model that in our churches? How can we encourage families on their journey? So that's us from there. I would encourage you, check out our website. We've got a stand over there. There's loads of free resources. The one thing I would just say, I haven't brought it with us, but you can download it for free online, or swing me an email and I'll happily send you as many of these. I love this little resource we've got together. It's called Ages and Stages. We recognise there's different ages, different stages of life for children. And we just put together, I've got lots of copies, so you can take one with you. And we just recognise that different ages are different things. So we work with our child development people that care for family, and we produce this little free resource to help families on this journey that a 9 to 11-year-old is starting to deal with responsibility. So how does faith come into that? So that's a great little resource. I won't bore you with all the other stuff. Apart from, take one of these, because this details everything we do. So that's on our table, and honestly, we're here to support. So if you want to touch base with me, I'll give you my email address, and we can arrange that. But I just want to say thank you again, what Lucy said. The families who work with will benefit, and you will benefit. So thanks for coming along, and I pray you have a great rest of the day. Take care.